Hey guys, my name is Matumio, and today I am thrilled to be bringing back the Terrible Weapon Challenge series. I used to do this all the time back in Battlefield 3. I kind of took a break from it to unlock all the weapons in the current game, and now that I have a majority, or actually pretty much every gun unlocked and a lot of the attachments, I thought it would be a good time to kind of bring this back. And so the way it works is that a lot of people, or you guys, recommend in the comment section a loadout. It could be a bad weapon, it can be a good weapon with just a terrible combination of attachments to try to give me a challenge to see if I can do well with it. And today, if it isn't apparent, I'm going to be using the 40 times scope on the SRR-61 bolt action rifle. And so I went into this thinking that it was going to just be an absolute nightmare. Like 40 times magnification is way overkill. I would say that 20 times is overkill. And the only real situation where that's even going to be viable is when you're trying to snipe people from across the map. And that's not really how I like to play. But after using this for a while, I actually kind of liked it a little bit. There are some attributes that are nice, and I'll kind of talk about that here in a moment. But I surprisingly had a lot of fun. And so the way that I kind of set up this challenge was I told myself I need to play around the objectives. I can't play 2,000 meters away. I need to be around the objectives. And while I don't need to be capping them myself, I at least need to make this kind of challenging and kind of what you guys were probably expecting, where there's just way too much magnification. And so the first thing I kind of had to overcome is that when you zoom in, even if they're like 200 meters away, is that it's hard to track their movements, especially when they're even closer than that. Is if they're moving and I zoom in, I lose them if they move. Like there's just so much magnification that I can't track where they're going to be heading. And so you guys will notice throughout today's video, I am constantly zooming in and out, not because I'm, trying to quick scope or be a cool kid and trying to do that just for flashy maneuvers. I'm actually doing that just so I can actually figure out where the enemies are. And I normally would do that with like an 8 times or a 12 times scope to just kind of see what's going on around me. But using the 40 times scope, it's almost mandatory, especially when I was placing closer to the objective. Like if I just stayed zoom in the entire time, I wouldn't be able to find enemies. It would be just as simple as that. One kind of amusing aspect of this is that when I would try to take out a moving target and when I was able to kill them, which frankly didn't happen very often, but when it did, I got tingly feelings all over my body because it was amazing. But when I had to, or when I was trying to line up for these moving targets, I actually couldn't see them on the screen, or they would be like on the peripheral of the scope itself, and I would just kind of have to guess where they are and kind of predict and move my crosshair to where I think they are going to be, but I didn't actually see them on my scope. Like that's just how much magnification there was. And so I quickly discovered that the best way for me to go on kill streaks was to try and find and kill stationary targets. Recon players that were off in the distance camping were a cakewalk because every single time I zoomed in, their head and their dome piece is gigantic. I can see the arc of the bullet, so it made it very easy for me to kind of line up those shots. But also, especially if they were up close and I didn't really have to compensate for bullet drop, the SRR-61 has the least bullet drop out of the bolt action rifles. And so if they weren't moving, I had this gigantic target to aim at, and it was very simple to take them out. Actually more simple than using something like the 8 times or the lower magnification scopes. And so while it maybe wasn't as thrilling or exciting or as aggressive as using, the lower magnification, it was kind of fun going on these kill streaks where I was able just to take these recon players and these camping users out back to back to back. It was actually kind of enjoyable. One thing that I definitely had to get used to is zooming in on the target reliably, because if you don't really know where it's going to zoom in, there were a lot of moments, especially when I was playing up close, is that I would zoom in and I'd have no idea what I'm looking at. Like I'd be like, where am I right now? And trying to figure out where the target was, they usually moved at that point and I wasn't able to take them out. And so one thing that I really kind of had just to get acclimated to was zooming in and knowing where I was zooming in. And so that once I did, I wasn't trying to frantically look around trying to figure out where the enemy went. And so kind of a byproduct of this is that I was performing essentially quick scopes, and that was really the only way for me to identify these moving targets or to get kills on people that were, you know, like 20 feet away from me. Like there was just no way, if they were moving, that I was gonna be able to zoom in, acquire the target, and take them out like a normal sniper. Like I basically had to quick scope them down. And when I was able to pull that off, simply because I was kind of practicing where I knew the weapon was going to zoom in, I was able to, you know, perform these kills that were just hilarious. And then every single time I was able to pull it off, I was giggling like a little schoolgirl. Like I thought to myself, this shouldn't be happening. I shouldn't get these kills. But because, you know, I was kind of getting used to the scope itself and kind of quick scoping in, and I know that some people hate quick scopes, but honestly, it was the only way I was going to be able to get these kills. So overall, while I would say that this wasn't the most difficult challenge that I ever done, and I went into it thinking that it was going to be a lot harder than it was, I had an absolute blast. And honestly, that's why I love this series. It really kind of switches things up. It really kind of changes the flow. It kind of allows me to do something a little bit different. And so I'm really happy that I'm going to be bringing this back. If you guys have a setup that you would like me to try next, either it be a terrible weapon, be it a combination of attachments that you think are going to be atrocious for that certain gun, let me know down below in the comments section. And also make sure to thumbs up the comments you would also like me to try out. It just makes it easier for me to identify which ones you would like me to try next. But until tomorrow, guys, have a good one and take it easy.